So, what's happening in WRN? Well, first we've said goodbye to a few of our members. Now, whenever someone leaves, I ask them about their choice. Here are the kinds of reasons people give me for their leaving WRN. I'm not making enough money. I'm not getting enough tips. It's taking up too much time. I already have too much business. I'm going to try something else. Now, the thing is, each of these are very solvable. And what I find is that the people who tend to leave based on these excuses aren't really trying to find solutions to these problems. Today, I'll be rolling out additional resources to help you if you ever find yourself struggling with any of these problems. One of the things I ask people if they are leaving WRN or if they're just struggling is, what is your level of participation? Are you involved in the group? Or are you just showing up every Tuesday morning? Are you going to lunch bunches? Lunch bunches are so important in terms of getting to know members on a personal level. People pass business to people that they know and trust. Have you reached out to ask for help? Have you talked to the top givers? These are the people who are passing most of the business. If you're not on their radar screen, how can you expect to be receiving some of the tips they're handing out? Are you taking advantage of the programs? We now have the mastermind. We have the 30-second commercial workshop. We have the field trip to networking events. But if you don't take advantage of them, they can't help you. And finally, have you taken full responsibility for your experience in this group? The truth is, if something isn't working, it's up to you to take the steps to make sure it is working. There are so many people in the group who are dedicated to the health and welfare and the growth of WRN, and they would bend over backwards to help you. But you have to ask. WRN takes a special kind of commitment, so let me talk briefly about the nature of commitment. Think about this question. How do you know when you're committed to something? What are the different things you do? What are the actions that you take? What's the behavior that you have that lets you know you've made a commitment that you're sticking to? Conversely, how do other people know when you're committed? In WRN, I know someone's committed when they show up every Tuesday. I know they're committed when at 7:01 they're in their seat and ready to go. If you're not showing people your level of commitment, there's less chance they're going to trust you. A surefire sign of a lack of commitment is the excuse. I don't expect vendors or service providers or anyone not to make mistakes. But when they play the blame game, when they shift the responsibility elsewhere, I trust them even less. When you adopt the philosophy that you're the master of your own destiny, excuses become a thing of the past. Let me give you an example of that. So let's say Dr. Macy comes up to me and asks if I can take her to the airport on Saturday morning. Of course, I'm going to say yes. Now on Friday, I find out that a family member has fallen ill and I need to leave town. So what happens to that commitment? Just because I have a problem, it doesn't mean that Dr. Macy still doesn't need to get to the airport. Now I could call her and I'm sure she'd be absolutely gracious about relieving me from my commitment to take her to the airport. But instead, I'm going to pay for a cab, a car service, or Uber. I'm going to make sure that I follow through on my commitment to get her to the airport. If I were to say to you, think of someone right now that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt would get you to the airport on time if you asked, I'm sure a few people have popped right into your head. Now, if I were to also say to you, think of someone who would likely not get you to the airport on time, I bet a few people popped into your head as well. Now, the only thing different about the people who would and the people who wouldn't is that they trained you to either rely on them or not rely on them. It means that at every moment of every day, through our actions, we are training people as to how much they can rely on us to follow through on our commitments. Nothing is more valuable than someone in business who absolutely positively all the time does what they say they will do. And while breaking a commitment is inevitable, it's what we do next that tells the biggest story about our personal integrity. My suggestion is to take on this commitment paradigm. Never, ever, ever say I'm sorry unless you follow it up with accountability and action. Another way to look at this is to use what I call the $10,000 rule. Think of it this way. You have a commitment to be at WRN at 7:01 a.m. Let's say you live 20 minutes away and you leave 25 minutes early to make sure you get there on time. Now on the way, you get stuck behind a traffic accident and that makes you 10 minutes late. Now truly, it wasn't your fault that there was an accident, but was the problem outside of your control? Actually, no. Because what would happen if you knew that you would get $10,000 for getting to WRN on time? Would you have done anything differently? Would you have left earlier that morning? Maybe you would have checked the internet to see if there's additional traffic. Maybe you would have even booked a hotel room nearby. I mean, that would certainly be worth the investment to make sure you got there on time if $10,000 was in the balance. Once you look at it from that perspective, you can see that what seemed like it was outside of your control suddenly becomes very much within your control. Now, I'm not saying you have to look at every commitment in that way, but it is an opportunity to step back from the perception that things happen outside of your ability to change them and recognize that you are indeed the master of your destiny in most every situation. At the last president's meeting, I talked about a plan of splitting up WRN into different business groupings, and members stepped up as captains of these groups. Grace for B2B, Janet Raffoa for health, Carl Brook for home contractor, Dr. Catherine Macy for home services, Vinny for lifestyle, Ben Domino for media, Brendan for professional services, and Ian Rusnell for property. I also created a meeting protocol to make sure that when you got together in these meetings, it wasn't just for socializing, that there's a specific methodology to get the most business for the investment of time that you're making. In just a moment, the program I'm going to roll out is even going to make getting together in your business groupings all that much easier. At the last president's meeting, I suggested that you consider WRN as a laboratory. And what I mean by that is that if you're not using WRN as a place to try new things, to do experiments, and push yourself beyond your comfort zone, then you're missing out on 90% of what this group has to offer you. Also, you can look at WRN as a gym. If you're just going to the gym and walking around or maybe getting on the treadmill for 5 minutes, you will not see the results you had envisioned when you joined that gym. The same is true of WRN. It's up to you to invest yourself to find the success that you're looking for. So I'm very pleased to present to you the newest program to help you increase your success at WRN. It's called the WRN Knowledgebase, and it's an online tool for accessing tons of new information. You can start by going to wrnknowledge.com. Now, this is a permanent website. It's always going to be there. On that website, I have tutorials to walk you through every part of it. This is an opportunity to truly supercharge your business growth. I urge you to check out the resources, use them, and help yourself grow as a business person and as an expert networker. Now finally, let me help you by running through some suggestions to make your 30-second commercial all the more powerful. Number 1, talk about how you exceed over your competition. Number 2, use thought leader language. For instance, there's one thing you have to know about selecting the best dry cleaner, and that is... Number 3, help us spot your best client. What should we be listening for? What should we be watching for? For instance, Ruben once said that if someone has splotches on their walls or splotches on the ceiling, that's a good indication that they might be a good client for him. Number 4, what's the easiest way people can start doing business with you? Number 5, be laser focused in your ask. You want to activate our visual thinking. Sometimes people in the group will say, I'm a hairdresser. My best customer is anyone who has hair. Well, that's not really true. Number 6, focus on one idea in your commercial. Don't try to sell everything at once. You want to think of your commercial more like a serial. Add more to the story every week or tell a different part of the story every week. Number 7, add a little mystery. Fire up people's curiosity, inspire their imagination, say provocative things and ask provocative questions. I bet you didn't know that a bucket of movie popcorn is less healthy for you than a Big Mac and a large order of French fries. Number 8, use analogies. Coming to me as your dentist is a lot like going to a baseball game. Now, I have no idea how that could possibly be, but you definitely get my attention on that. Number 9, don't use the word free or discount. Instead, focus on the value that people get out of working with you. Yes, free gets a lot of people's attention, but what free also does is it essentially tells people that the thing that you're giving away has no value. Number 10, you can definitely use a gimmick to get people's attention, like popping a balloon. But make sure you follow it up with something substantial. Have a reason that you popped a balloon. This is what will happen to your life savings if you get into an accident without having good insurance. Also, I suggest not doing a gimmick every week, and certainly not the same gimmick every week. 11, finally, practice your commercial Monday night. Practice it on the way to the meeting. Make sure it's not more than 20 seconds long. We hate giving people the bell, and we'd much prefer having extra time at the end of the meeting for testimonials. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I appreciate the effort that you put into making WRN a better and more powerful group. Please seek me out. Let me know what I can do to help you be more successful in Westside Referral Network.